I remember when Josh went and he just got the most fucking infected foot and had to cut his vacation home
Oh
early.
my God, yeah, I forgot about that. I always remember that he went.
Superior with me, and he was like, "I'm coming home early."
I always remember that he went, and I get like all jealous. I always forget that he had to cut it short because his foot almost fell off. That makes me feel a lot better.
Right? It's like that's what you get, not taking me with you.
Yeah,
I had a
friend with you. You'd have done fine.
What'd you say, Chris?
I had a friend. By the way, we're live.
Of course we are. God damn it.
Were
we live during the part where we were talking about Josh's foot falling off?
Yeah, of course.
Hey, Josh, perfect timing, buddy.
What?
We were talking about how my boss is currently in Japan for fun. And we were like, I want to go to Japan. And then we're like, remember when Josh went, but then had to leave early because his foot almost fell off?
Pretty much. Pretty much.
I have a friend who went to Japan, and she popped over to China for a day.
You know, as you do.
And the bus she was on had someone who was infected with bird flu. So she got stuck in Chinese quarantine for about a month.
Amazing.
Yeah. It worked out real great.
So did I just make it in time?
Yeah. Yeah, we literally just started.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Hey.
You're like a few seconds late.
I'm okay with that.
You did it.
I did it. I made it. Working that film life is tough.
So we're back after like a month off.
Only 3 weeks.
It's like our August. We took an August off like the Europeans do.
Yeah, it's fine. Look, all I know is that I missed you guys.
No, you don't.
I did.
You could have hung out with us.
I hung out with Chris twice.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't really miss you at all. I saw you yesterday.
Doug was really busy.
Yeah.
We hung out on Wednesday.
I was off the weekend and yesterday.
You know what helps when you tell me that? When you message me and go, "Hey, I'm off."
I did.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
Well, to be fair, the weekend I was working with our good friend Steven at Bonafide, his food truck, who he just spent the day with Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes.
What a
That was pretty awesome. But you hung out with my PA.
Yeah.
Matt. And you didn't hang out with me.
What a small world.
And you tried to con my PA to do the graphics for the show, which she is. So
I guess it worked out.
You're awful.
It all worked out.
You're awful.
Hey, to be fair, I did tell her it would be pretty mediocre exposure. So she's getting something out of it. Because if I know anything about artists and graphic designers, they love exposure as a form of payment.
They really do, actually. That's true. That's true.
I'm very proud. All right, so we have a pretty dope episode today. This idea for this episode was brought to us by Mr. Josh. That's you. We've been steering more towards like themed episodes rather than just like news of the week stuff. And Josh was like, let's talk Zelda. And you know what? We will. With one caveat.
No, what?
No Zelda 2. Just to fuck with Josh.
No. I have a whole thing about why Zelda 2 is actually a very good game. And
who saw that coming?
It's not trolling. It's actually, I have real positive criticism about The Adventures of Link.
Well, how about this? Let's start it off by giving everyone a chance. And Josh, because this was your idea, we'll start with you. Why don't we all go around and say what our favorite Zelda is, and then give like some reasons why.
Okay, but Zelda 2 isn't my favorite Zelda. That's
okay. Well, we'll come back to that, and we'll start with just your favorite. But this whole show was your idea, so you take point.
So, my favorite Zelda is Link to the Past.
That's because it's the best one. Still my idea.
It is the best one, but something about that game is so amazing, and the Super Nintendo really didn't have. All right, the Super Nintendo had some really good starter games. Super Mario World's great. ActRaiser was amazing. but like it was that waiting for Zelda Link to the Past. It was waiting for that game and reading
Zelda 3 for so long.
And it just felt so. The game didn't take that long to come out. It came out in like 92, and the Super Nintendo came out in 91. Right?
No,
So
I think it was either 91 or 93. I'm leaning towards 91.
The Super Nintendo came out in 91.
I'm talking about Zelda.
Oh,
yeah,
91. It came out in 92, right?
No,
no.
Super Nintendo and Zelda were 91.
I'm sorry. What was the question?
When did Link to the Past come out?
91.
Oh God, I don't know.
I just looked it up. It's 91.
Okay, it came out in 91. So the Super Nintendo came out in 91. So it wasn't a long time. So, but yeah, the game is great. The game is perfect. The only thing I have an issue with that game is I feel like there was too much. You spent too much time in the dark world and not enough time in the light world. But I don't know. Everything about that game is amazing, and it shapes all of the Zeldas after that. Plus, I think it's a part of the good timeline in Zelda, because the whole timeline in Zelda is all wacky and really interesting.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got.
That's all you got?
That's all I got about that game. It's great. You go play it. Fuck, you can go play the game.
What about you, Chris?
How great it is.
I'm at a bit of a disadvantage. I'm not a Zelda person. I've only played like 2.
All right, we'll talk about
by default, my favorite Zelda is The Legend of Zelda, the one on the DS where you got to do paintings.
The 3DS, you mean?
Yeah.
The direct sequel to Link to the Past, Link Between Worlds.
Yeah, that's the one. That's a good one. I like that a lot. I had a lot of fun playing it.
I gotta say, just jumping in real quick, that was such a proud Papa Bear moment for me when Chris finally played his first Zelda game and ended up really liking it.
And beat it.
Yeah, and if you know Chris,
Beating
and watch anything about him, the fact that he beat a game and then liked it, monumental.
Yeah, well, I also started Breath of the Wild, and I got a couple hours into that, but that was like months ago. But no, I think the Link to the Past formula, because I've obviously seen videos about it. I think Link to the Past formula is probably the best for Zelda, and I think that Link Between Worlds being handheld and having the painting system and the light and dark world. They were really engaging and way better than like a handheld game kind of should be. I think.
I think that's the first Zelda Saki beat.
That sounds about right.
Did you know Saki doesn't refer to them as dungeons?
What are they?
She refers to them as Pokemon gyms.
Yeah, okay, I guess so.
Just letting you know. It's a little Saki trivia.
Well, we have to get the Saki wiki up and running.
We do need a Saki wiki. Doug, hop on it.
Saki facts.
Saki facts.
Yes.
Now, what about you, Doug?
Saki wiki.
Well,
Wikia.saki.com.
I'm just a little bit better than Chris. I've only played probably 3, maybe 4 Zelda games. I played the original Link to the Past, and whatever the first 64 was called. I can't keep track of all the subtitles offhand. It was
Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, Ocarina of Time. Thank you. Which I liked, but I'm such a weird nerdy purist that I was mad that it was 3-dimensional. I was a kid. I was, now I'm like, of course it's better. But I was like, it's not from the top down. It doesn't look like smashed heads. I don't like it. Anyway, but I like Link to the Past the best because it was kind of like you redid Zelda and it was way better. That's I always like that the best. I have fond memories of playing it. I never really, I drifted out of consoles after the PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64 generation. So I don't really have a lot more Zeldas in my pocket. But to me, Link to the Past is like an essential RPG for video games, and that's what I always judge everything by. I think until you get to like Final Fantasy. Yeah.
You know, I'm going to echo everyone else because technically even Chris's counts because it was the sequel to it. It was so similar. It might as well be the same game. It's Link to the Past. Not only is it my favorite Zelda game, it is my second favorite game of all time. So,
nice.
You know, just in case you wanted to know how good my taste in games were.
Well, what's your favorite, like, Dokkan battle?
Final Fantasy VI.
Okay, yeah, we need a litmus. That's all. I just wanted to get the
top three are Final Fantasy VI, Link to the Past, Super Metroid.
Yeah, well, think of the snobbiest answers you can get.
Yeah.
I don't believe I said. Oh God, what are the most like?
Matt is a walking Game Insider magazine. Like he's not, he's gonna have his internal audience that votes.
The Witness, Braid, and Inside.
Excuse me. I prefer Limbo, and what?
No one prefers Limbo.
Actually, I prefer Limbo and Bastion, and I believe 1983 Zork is
Oh my God, yes.
You know, if it became a plot point in Ready Player One, that's a terrible answer.
Can we do some like counterpoint episodes where we're just hating on something?
That would be fantastic.
Pick a topic, Doug. We'll do that next week.
Yeah, I need something to do. So
because I feel like Ready Player One is a great thing to talk about how being pandered doesn't work out sometimes. You
know what I like best about our group? No one was a fucking lame-o and said Breath of the Wild is their favorite Zelda game.
No, it is a great game, but like, I don't know. I would never say anything that new, first of all, because you don't know how it's gonna, rack up later. It's like I will never forget the moment on MTV when there was a top 3 bands of the '90s thing. It was like a Family Feud for teenagers or whatever, and they had the top 3, and it was like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and you're like, okay, with you. Korn had just gotten popular 2 months ago. And I was like, that's the one that won't last. Number 3 never lasts.
What a dark time.
Hey, remember when Korn had a cameo in South Park for their Scooby-Doo episode? That was actually the best thing Korn had ever done.
Yeah. Matt, we should go game by game.
Yes. Now that we did that, I actually have pulled up the list of chronological releases for Zelda.
Make it so.
So, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the Mac Daddy, the one that started it all. I believe it's the first game that ever had a password save system. Or a save system in general for NES games. It was like a big deal.
And the golden cartridge, which is I think the most iconic thing about the game, is the cartridge.
The Master Quest?
What?
The golden cartridge.
Oh yeah, that too.
Oh yeah.
So the original Legend of Zelda from 1987. I'm using American release dates.
I still honestly hear me out on this because I still get chills when I hear the opening music of that game. When you put that game in and you hear the Zelda tune hitting, I still get chills from that and seeing the waterfall.
Oh, look at Chris rocking the gold cartridge.
There it is.
Chris, you should talk so it actually pops up on someone's screen.
That thing is beautiful.
This is the gold cartridge. It's legit. See, there's the game.
Hey, Chris.
What?
Christopher.
What?
Would I be correct in stating that one of the most iconic lines in video games is "It's dangerous to go alone. Take this."
Yes, you're absolutely correct. And it happens that it's early enough in the game that everyone has seen it.
You mean literally the first screen of the game?
Yes, because I have tried to play this game, let's say 6 times, and maybe it's because I come from the wrong direction of gaming. Because I come from the big wussy hand holding era of gaming. So when you drop me in the middle of nowhere and like go do the thing, and I'm just walking around like I can't find the thing. I hate everything about this.
Zelda existed in the time frame when Nintendo had that hotline where you could call, and Nintendo Power was where you found the secrets because internet didn't exist. There are so many things in that game that I don't think I ever would have realized had I not gotten help from Nintendo Power, like burning the one single bush with the candle to open up one of the fucking dungeons, or gyms, or moving the
Don't listen to Saki.
statue on Death Mountain.
Yeah, and then the second quest when you put in Zelda's name, you get to play the second quest, or if you finish the game, you get to play the second quest. It's like the game created the
remix
world.
The whole game remix
open world gaming. It really did.
So I've had to just make peace that I'm never going to finish it, because at this point, I don't have the time or energy to kind of parse it out myself. So I would be reading a walkthrough, and at that point, I would rather just watch someone else do it as opposed to just doing a checklist.
Well, that was what I was going to ask Chris. Have you ever considered just watching like a speed run?
I've watched several Let's Plays of it. I get it.
So
I know it's beyond me. What?
You've seen it in action then?
Yeah.
Okay. So next up, unless Doug has anything to add.
I'm okay right now. I can't remember.
Next up, and I'm just going to immediately defer to Josh before I jump in, is Nintendo. If you look at the NES, the second entries in a lot of what became their most iconic series, you could tell Nintendo wasn't really sure if they wanted each game to be a traditional sequel, because almost every number 2 was so completely wild, and it wasn't until the third one that they went back to what made the original so good. Like, look at Mario 2 versus Mario 1 and 3, Zelda 2 versus Zelda 1 and 3, Metroid 2 versus Metroid 1 and 3. Like, the NES age was wild for that stuff. So Zelda 2 took everything people remembered about Zelda 1 and then turned it into a side-scrolling action RPG, one of the first games of its type with leveling up, a magic system, like all kinds of shenanigans. And I know Josh has been chomping at the bit to discuss this. So Josh, please tell us why what most people consider the dark horse of the Zelda franchise is actually really good.
So this is the thing. People will say, oh, you're trolling because you're saying it's a good game because it's not really a good game. But here's the thing. Think of all the games that are, when we think of Metroidvania games, we're not really pointing out to, they're actually Zelda 2 games. Like, at the end of the day, Zelda 2 set a whole new platform type for the gaming, and it punishing difficulty as well. So I was joking around saying it's like, oh, it's also, this is the birth of the Souls games, because the game is so difficult. It doesn't make any sense on why it's so difficult. It's like, why is this game so hard? But it has the leveling up system. It has a magic system. It has an exploration. It has you can explore anywhere. You can go anywhere you want, but you'll die because it's difficult because you have to level up for it. But the game is actually a really good game. If you go and take this game as, okay, this is going to be a punishing game. There's some things in it that's kind of wonky. You have to understand that, like, they were developing a game. They were thinking of a game they were trying to develop that they were already ahead of the technology. So, I feel like without this game, you don't have Super Metroid. You don't have Castlevania Symphony of the Night, because now you have the skeleton on how to make those games. And Link getting different power-ups, like you can break blocks, you can do a down slice, you can do an up slice, you can cast spells, you have to get this thing to open up this thing, and you have to do this to open up that.
Excuse me, Josh?
Yes.
You keep calling it a Metroidvania game, but you're forgetting the more obvious connection that it actually is more like. Zelda 2 is the Dark Souls of Zelda.
That's what I was saying. It's a Souls-like game. It is the Dark Souls of Zelda. It is just stupidly hard. You get 3 lives, and then you die, and if you got all those experience from, like, those lives, and then game over, you no longer have that experience you gained. That's it. You got to start all over again and build up that experience. The game is just stupidly like difficult. I haven't finished it, and I still enjoy the game. I enjoy everything about Zelda 2. And I've played a lot of other games. What's that?
Have you gotten to Death Mountain yet?
Oh, yes. I've gotten to the end of the game. I've gotten to where you had to fight Link's shadow, and I was like, nope, done.
Link's shadow was the true test for every... I'm gonna be honest with you. I eventually went back and beat it legitimately, but as a kid, Zelda 2 was my virgin voyage of my Game Genie.
Yeah.
I have to say, Game Genie was great.
That Game Genie made that game so much easier. And then like the creator has talked many things about like, you know, it is the black sheep of all the Zelda games. It's so different from all of the Zelda's games, but I think it's influenced so many future video games. And I think that's the thing that makes it great, is that it has influenced so much. It's like Sunny Day Real Estate is an okay band. People are going to say, fuck you, you're dumb. They're okay. But
I think you literally just made a reference only you get.
Doug gets it.
I get it. But me, it's like me and the guy who writes Wicked and Divine are laughing our ass off right now.
Right?
and everybody else is like, Sunny Day Real Estate, was that like a band?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. But the game is great, and if you have an NES Classic, go back and try to play it, and play it thinking like it's a Souls game. Think
or
about
if you're on a Switch. If you do the Switch Online, it's one of the games that's already free on the service.
Do it. Go. It's great playing. If you don't have to pay for it, play it. It's great. Some of the text, or you're like, oh, okay, whatever. And then the I am error is so popular all over the internet. It's just, I don't know. There's just something about the game. There's a charm to it.
You want to know the best thing that came out of Zelda 2? Was Brental Floss's Zelda 2 with lyrics. Chris knows what I'm talking about.
I think maybe it's like, let's go into the musical esoterica again, because this is my zone. Billy Idol's Cyberpunk album is a horrible album in 1983, but now is his clearly best album from a modern standpoint. But it was not like, if you were a kid in 1983, you're waiting for the new Billy Idol album, it sucked, and that's what Link 2 is. It's a thing that isn't good for like 20, 30 years because it can't possibly be enjoyed by anybody except people who play Dark Souls.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's the same kid, right, who now has grown up and has evolved into a gamer who plays Dark Souls, that can now go back and play that game and go, oh, this is actually enjoyable to me now. Everything that made a bad game back then is what makes a good game now. And that is to loop back around and say Dark Souls is a shitty game. I hate everyone. But if I wanted to be punished, I wouldn't be playing a game.
You need to be punished. Punishment's the only way you learn.
I had enough punishment in my childhood. I don't need to seek it out in my entertainment. It's such an predator thing to do.
So let's chat about the big boy, the big dog in the group, the Final Fantasy VI to Ocarina of Time's Final Fantasy VII.
Nice.
Look, I mean, a lot of things happening there.
Look, I'm just
at least
it's the perfect metaphor for it.
No, it is.
That have played them all agree that one's best, but most people's first experience was the original 3D outing, and so they swear by that one until they realize that it just did not age well.
It really didn't.
So anyway, Link to the Past for Super Nintendo, 1991. It was 3 years since Zelda 2 came out. The Super Nintendo has taken the world by storm. And Chris played this one, finally. So why don't you take point? You came into this later than most.
Mm-hmm.
So because it wasn't blowing your mind as a kid, how did you, like, what were your thoughts on playing it, considering for you at the time it was definitively retro instead of cutting edge?
It's important to clarify that I never finished Link to the Past proper. I played a little bit of it, but it was too similar to Link Between Worlds, so that kind of put me off of it, ironically. But I think it's got a kind of timelessness to it because it's well made, it's well programmed. You know, combat, all the abilities, all the little nooks and crannies that are in the world, and I think it's pretty timeless in a way that some games just don't get to be because of, you know, technology. Having said that, you know, I will finish it at some point. I don't know when that's going to be, but I will. And I think its reputation for best is well deserved.
I like it.
Thanks.
You know what blows my mind about it is Link to the Past is the perfect example of why sprite-based games are always going to age better than polygon-based games, because it doesn't matter that the game's almost 30 years old now. Like, I want you to realize that the game is 2 years away from being 30 years old. Good Lord. And it still looks and plays so freaking well. But Ocarina of Time, if you popped in your N64, you might like need to just bleach your eyes to get them to work again. Not a pretty game.
No, it's not.
I think there was a slightly greater than 50% chance that nothing happens on the 30th anniversary.
Most likely. Almost 100%.
Yeah. No, I think that plays into the timelessness of it because, like you said, Ocarina of Time is the other contender for best game of all time, and it looks real bad now.
Yeah,
and I think the N64 as a whole has aged very badly, particularly the controller.
Yeah, the controller has. There's still some games.
Still on Link to the Past. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, calm down.
You calm down, sir.
All right. So anyway, what else do you have to say about Link to the Past?
I mean, it introduced so many firsts to the series. The first to have, I believe, the first game to make you collect the three classic medallions: the red, blue, and green. It introduced Gorons, Zoras. I don't believe it introduced the Kokiri kids, but like the introduction of an alternate universe that you go between, like that became such a staple for Zelda, as either through time travel or dimension traveling, just going between two versions of the same world became such a staple of the series. So much of it started in Link to the Past. Like so many classic items that we now consider, like sure the boomerang and the bow existed in 1 and 2, but hook shots and the gloves and the different medallions and the different staffs you could wear and the fire rod and the ice rod, and Link to the Past is just chock full of classic items. The bottle of all things, sure.
Yeah. Oh, the butterfly.
It also introduced the another classic Zelda mechanic, which is the frickin' ping pong system with Ganon, or the balance where you repel an energy ball back and forth until you hit them. Like that was started with Zelda or Link to the Past. It's good stuff, man.
It is good stuff. No,
I could literally do a whole episode preaching about Link to the Past, but if you've played it, you already know, and if you haven't, then you will when you ever play it. But I don't know, man.
I don't normally recommend going back to older games because there's just so much that exists now. But I think this is one that you would be well worth the effort to go back for it.
I find that strange that you say that because you, as a person, literally go back to old games all the time.
I do, but I want to say that I don't advocate that you have to. It's much the same way that fancy cinema snobs now are like, well, you haven't seen this in the original German, right? and it's like, yeah, I know, I don't really care because there's a million movies that have come out, and now we've hit the stage where there are millions of games out there, the time is finite. So I don't advocate it. If you do it, God bless you, go for it. But I don't advocate it.
So next up, we have actually a very timely game. 1993, 2 years later, on the Game Boy and later the Game Boy Color, Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, which is getting its very first remake for the Switch later this year.
Which is pretty fantastic. I saw that and I'm like, I got to get a Switch now.
Link's Awakening introduced jumping for the first time with the Rock's Feather and brought back the Zelda 2 side-scrolling elements, but like made them way better. Also, you fought Goombas.
Yeah, it's weird.
And
the game's weird.
Because why not?
I look forward to playing it this year. I didn't have it on the Game Boy as a child.
You know what? I'm really excited to see what they add to it because comparatively, it's a very short, small Zelda game, but like still had so many secrets to it. And there's a reason it's so beloved. And I'm really excited for you to try it out for the first time.
Well, I feel like that's when you can really take risk with the Zelda, like the universe. Like you can make it as weird as possible. That's what it is. Just go weird. It's fun. It's a fantasy world.
Link's Awakening is still one of the top handheld Zeldas of all time.
That's crazy.
Like that's what blows my mind. Like that era of Zelda is just so good.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
I remember it was, and then they got a re-release on the Game Boy Color with the Link's Awakening DX, and that was a big deal because it was.
But it's weird when you think about it because like the N64 era of Zeldas, everybody remembers that, but I don't think it's the best era because the GameCube has a really solid Zelda game.
Oh yeah,
I personally think.
Well, we're about to move into the N64 again. I think the N64 ones get the most. It's like Final Fantasy VII. For so many people, that was their first Zelda because it was the first 3D one. It blew so many people away at the time, and so people have this. It's what is it? The not the recency, the primacy effect, where the first one you played has the best impression in your mind, regardless of actual quality. Now, don't get me wrong. So much of Ocarina of Time is timeless and set the stage for so much to come, but I don't think it holds up as well as some of the others.
I agree with that.
So speaking of, moving on, it has been 5 years since Link's Awakening and a total of 7 years since the last main Zelda game. And Ocarina of Time finally comes out on the N64. And I believe it was the first 10 out of 10 IGN ever gave. Like, if you weren't around in 96, I don't think you can understand the cultural significance this game had. It kind of changed everything.
Wait, was IGN around in 1996?
It was. No, I said 98.
98.
No, you said 96.
No, I said it had been 6 years. Whatever, doesn't matter. I'm in 98.
It doesn't matter.
It's okay, you were wrong.
IGN still were they around at that time?
Yes, they were.
Was there internet?
There was.
What is
You remember the dark times. You had to dial in.
It's the AOL times, the ICQ times. Many
November 25th, 1998, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time review by some guy named Pierre Schneider.
Okay.
Masterpiece, 10 out of 10.
So I've seen video of Ocarina of Time, and I kind of get the basic concept of it, but I was not an N64 kid, and I had no interest for it on the re-release on the DS.
Well, like I said, Link to the Past started so much, so similar to Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time had you start with getting 3 medallions, then traveling to a different version of the same world, but instead of doing an alternate reality, you just skipped in time to adult Link. And then, just like Link to the Past, you had to save 7 people. Instead of maidens, they were like, I I forget what they were called, oracles or something. And yeah, this game it was basically a rehash of all of Link to the Past's gameplay beats, but in 3D. And don't get me wrong, it added so much cool stuff. Like Zelda, Ocarina of Time was the first, not just Zelda game, but one of the first games to add 3D lock-on.
Yeah,
It's become such a huge part of 3D gaming. Link to the Ocarina of Time started that. That was Z targeting was a huge deal back then.
plus you had you had more of the RPG elements of NPCs really played a major role in the game.
Yep, side quests.
Side quests. Yeah, there's a lot of cool things about the game. It just visually it didn't age well. Gameplay wise, it's still kind of difficult if you play it on. I don't know if you play it on the GameCube when they did the re-release with the Master Dungeon.
Right now, the best way to play it is the 3DS re-release.
Okay.
It actually looks pretty sharp. It holds up a lot better on that. But unlike the Link to the Past and other 2D ones, the 3D Ocarina of Time got surpassed by other 3D Zelda games.
Yeah.
But like Julian said in chat, it had an open-ended area, like it was an open world for most people, and 3D. And at the time, it was literally nothing like it. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like Preacher says in chat, he hasn't played since it first came out, so in his head it aged really well.
Go play it again.
Yeah.
So
hop into that world.
After Ocarina of Time, 2 years later, near the end of the N64 life cycle, we got Majora's Mask, which I believe might be almost as divisive as Zelda 2. People
really is.
either love Majora's Mask or you hate it. There's very few people that are like, it was okay.
It was the time. People didn't really feel like they had freedom in the game. And because you had 3 days to do things, you had 3 days to do everything. But then you start understanding how the concept works, where you can go back in time and keep on doing it, but you kept your stuff. It's kind of like one of the, I don't know, it's strange to say, it's like one of the first roguelike games in a way, where you do stuff and then you die, but you have all the stuff again, but the game resets.
Yeah, but I gotta tell you, it was really frustrating. Like I'm in the anti-Majora's Mask camp, and I'm fine with that. I played it on the N64 and hated it so much that for the longest time it was the only Zelda game I never beat. And it wasn't until the 3DS remake that I was like, maybe I should give it another chance. You know, maybe it deserves it, and I beat it. I actually did. I beat it. I did everything, and still don't care for it very much.
You were much softer on it after you had replayed it.
It's true, and you know what? And no one can say I did not give it a fair shake. We have a good friend, Matt Wurz, and Majora's Mask is his greatest of all time, and we used to have some debates on that one. But I promised him I would give it a shot, and I did, and I 100% of the game. I did everything, and after it was all done, I was like, well, it sure was a Zelda game.
It sure was a Zelda game. That's what I feel like with Twilight Princess. I was like, that was a Zelda game.
Doug, have you played any of these yet?
No.
All right, stop us when you get to one you have.
Yeah, no. When I hear you mention something, I'm gonna go, oh, hey, I get that reference.
I'm happy Doug got the Sunny Day real estate reference.
Yeah, I'm gonna come in.
Julian in chat mentions Majora's Mask because of its masks. And that was a cool concept, like equipping different masks to get different powers instead of having.
Wasn't there a Pikachu mask? Am I wrong about that?
It was one that looked like a Pikachu and made you run faster, but it was not an actual Pikachu mask.
Definitely a Pikachu mask.
Okay. So next up, we stop the consoles and we go and we have 3 in a row that are handhelds.
You know, we really missed the really bad Zeldas, the ones that were made for the
CDI.
The issue who should not be named, the CDI ones.
Yes,
we will briefly mention them: the Wand of Gamelon and the Faces of Evil.
I watched the Game Grumps Let's Play of it. Very entertaining. Never want to see those in real life ever again.
It was so bad Nintendo never did anything else with anyone again.
They don't deserve it. They're garbage.
They are very garbage.
So,
you are correct.
Yeah.
Well, excuse me.
Yeah, that might be the worst part is the art style.
Oh, but it did give us, well, excuse me. No, excuse, that's from the TV show.
That's from the cartoon.
Yeah, that's great.
You can't, Julian and Chad, you can't get a full episode on the CDI because none of us are getting a CDI to play it.
Oh, man.
True. And I don't think you can emulate them very well.
A CDI? I wonder if you could still buy one.
You can in thrift stores if they have them. Also, they may or may not work because they have a high failure rate. Also, you may need a controller that has an equally high failure rate.
Hold on, I'm looking up the Philips CDI on eBay.
Oh, dear.
You can, in fact, buy a refurbished one for $475.
You can go fuck off. That's what you can do.
What games do they have? We're going totally away.
No, they don't have games.
Oh my god.
I don't want to. The Angry Video Game Nerd has a great 2 or 3 part series on the CDI that will tell you everything you need to know about this garbage system.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Tell me about the handhelds, Matt.
So next up, we got our coming off of the massive success of Pokemon Red and Blue. Nintendo was like, what if we also made a game and released 2 versions of the same game of Zelda, but then just changed different parts of it, just like Red and Blue. And thus was born Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Ages, and Oracle of Seasons. I believe the first games built by Capcom.
Yeah.
For the longest time, for a while, Capcom and Nintendo made all the handheld Zelda games. Just in case you weren't aware.
Fact.
So yeah, these 2 games were pretty much the same world, but one dealt with time travel and one dealt with changing the seasons from spring, summer, fall, and winter to like change the landscape. Whereas Ages, you changed you used time travel like Ocarina of Time. And you had to play both of them to get the full story.
Have they ever been re-released?
I don't think so. Oh, yes, on the 3DS Virtual Console. You can play them on your 3DS.
There you go.
And I believe these were the games that first introduced the rideable friends. So there's like a kangaroo with boxing gloves, and there was a flying hippo-looking thing. So there was like friends in the game. Good stuff.
Sounds great.
Well, after that, they remade Link to the Past for the Game Boy Advance. And that would have been notable by itself, but they added to it a multiplayer component called Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventures. Oh, no, never mind, just 4 Swords, where you could use the link cable and play 4-player Zelda. It was amazing at the time. But I believe I only played it once, because how many people did you know that owned a link cable, Zelda, and a Game Boy Advance, and you had 4 of you at the same time?
I don't think it's a real thing.
It reminds me a lot of the Final Fantasy game. What is it? Crystal Chronicles? That it required a GameCube, 4 Game Boy Advances, 4 cables, and 4 copies of the game.
Yep. Crazy.
That was a weird time in gaming.
Yeah, Nintendo was like, we don't want to do online gaming. Instead, we'll make you buy hundreds of dollars of accessories and make everyone be in the same room.
Yeah, basically.
They were like, how can we fit all the information you need on a screen without cluttering up the game with 4 people? I know. We'll make your Game Boy Advance the screen, and we'll make everyone need to plug in.
What a time to be alive.
That's why I'm excited for they're remaking it on Switch. It's going to be great.
Maybe.
Anyway.
Do I have to Skype in so we can talk about the game together?
What?
Do I have to Skype in so we can be on the game together?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So the same year as Link to the Past and 4 Swords, the same week, they released the Wind Waker on GameCube, which at the time, if you recall, when they first announced Wind Waker, and I believe it was the first time fans threw a hissy fit on the internet. Like, I believe I distinctly remember being one of the first true gaming controversies where fans took to forums en masse to complain because they changed the art style. The debut, when they first showed off the GameCube, they did a tech trailer, and it looked like a much darker, grittier version of Ocarina of Time, and people were blown away with GameCube graphics. And then they were like, here's Wind Waker, and people were like, oh, it's Zelda, because it was cel-shaded, and they use that as a derisive term, and they were called it kiddie and stupid, and people hated it. Then the game came out and was great, and now, 10 years down the road, people laud it as a classic.
That's the great thing about history is that everyone was wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. No, the game was great. The game was beautifully done. The shell shading is great. It aged extremely well.
The Switch re-release was amazing.
Yeah, it's a great game. It's not the best Zelda, but I put it as the second, like right behind Link to the Past. It is
the remake fixed the biggest problem, which was there was a huge chunk at the end where you had to sail all over to fish up the pieces of the Triforce.
Yeah.
And it was so padded and so fetch questy and added like an unnecessary 5 hours of just dead gameplay where it was just sail to this point, sail to that point. And they fixed that in the Switch remake or the Wii U remake. But man, at the time, those graphics, and again, there's a reason why Wind Waker aged the best out of all of that era of consoles, because it didn't use traditional 3D. The cel shading still looks good.
It still looks great. It is still one of the best looking Zelda games. Besides like Wayward Sword, I think it's still one of the best looking Zelda games.
Well, and Chris, I believe you remember how violent the end of that game got. Didn't you see that?
I think I did see that.
Because that's the Wind Waker's the one where Link just straight stabs Ganon in the fucking head.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
And they don't like cut away. It's just you drop down Sephiroth style and stab him in the head, but you're like this cute cel-shaded boy Link, and you just stab the dude in the fucking eyeball. And you're just like, yep, that happened.
It's A+.
All of that happened.
Just so tonally out of whack. And then I remember when you realize that the whole reason the world's flooded, like when you go under the water, you realize that everything on the map was like the original Zelda map, but flooded. So it's all the mountains from the original Zelda game are the islands, and Hyrule is underwater.
Yeah, it's really cool. Climate change, kids. It's real.
Yep. All right, so a year later, we get on the GameCube 4 Swords Adventures. Once again, like Crystal Chronicles, requiring 4 Game Boy Advances, 4 Game Link cables, and 4 copies of the game.
Too much work.
What a pain in the ass.
Again, only played it once.
This is definitely a thing for children, because I can't imagine getting 4 adults together to play this fucking game.
Right?
No, never happened.
Now, that same year, that holiday, Capcom released another one. Another game that I think aged well graphically. Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap for the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, the Minish Cap was good.
Instead of time travel or alternate dimensions, you shrunk. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids style. So the world became tiny and regular.
Yeah.
It was a cool mechanic.
I may be mistaken, but it feels like the Minish Cap is one of the most forgotten about.
Oh, you're not wrong. It is.
Because there's also Phantom Tracks. Do you remember that one?
Barely.
No. We'll get to how shitty the DS games were. Oh, don't worry. The DS was a dark time for Zelda owners.
That was the dark Zelda timeline.
So, you said something about the trailer for Wind Waker. Didn't Twilight Princess also get like a real dark trailer?
Yes, but then Twilight Princess actually capitalized on that.
Okay. It did.
So, after Minish Cap, 2 years later, so it's been 3 years since Wind Waker, and it's been 8 years since Ocarina of Time. The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess comes out simultaneously on the GameCube and the Nintendo Wii. It had been pushed back so many times, and they
Yeah.
finally were like, guess what? It's also a launch title for the Wii.
So this was the first Zelda that I was consciously aware of because I had started working at GameStop at this point.
Ah.
And I actually really liked that it was released on both systems, but I think, what was it, the GameCube was reversed, or the Switch, or the Wii was reversed?
The Wii one.
Which version do you prefer, the Wii or the GameCube?
Wii. The Wii, it was one of the, because I mean, it wasn't like a 1-to-1, but there was just something cool, especially as a launch game, of swinging the sword and having it work. Like that was a magical time for the Wii before you realized that it was mostly like misdirection bullshit.
Before every carny started making a waggle game?
Yeah.
Oh Jesus. No, it was I don't think it was the strongest of all the Zelda games, and I don't think it's the most memorable of all the Zelda games. I think it's like the Majora Mask of that time frame.
Well, no, people love it now. You know, someone made a graphic making fun of that. It was called the Zelda cycle, where it's Zelda games announced, everyone hates it. Game comes out, oh, it's pretty good. 10 years later, next Zelda game's announced. The previous one's now a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Because I remember when they finally re-released it on Wii U, people they were like, oh yeah, oh my gosh, so good. Twilight Princess was so good. And you know what? The same thing's going to happen with Skyward Sword, because you know that's getting a Switch remake eventually.
It's already starting.
And people hated Skyward Sword when it came out because it was just like an 18-hour tutorial, and the fucking sword spirit that stopped you from playing every 12 seconds to remind you about something.
Yeah.
I think it's already starting.
Still, the art style in that game is really good.
All right, next up, after 2006's Twilight Princess, in 2007 we entered the dark period of handheld games.
Dun dun dun.
The Phantom Hourglass. So bad.
Is this the one with the train?
No, that's next. This is the one where you couldn't actually control Link. You had to draw his path on the touch screen. You couldn't actually control him. You had to lead him. And it was so frustrating. And you could tell that it was just like, the DS is new. We're going to make it the touch screen, the control, instead of making it an option. And it just made it awful. And then every time you did something, you had to go deeper into the Phantom dungeon or the Phantom Gym. Well, Saku's asleep. It's fine. And that was just a terrible mechanic. So much about that game was blah. Yeah, Julian, it worked great for Kirby. Kirby's Canvas Curse was amazing.
Kirby's also adorable.
Kirby is adorable. Kirby works.
Doesn't work for Zelda. Doesn't work for Link. The dark period.
Continue on the dark period.
Okay, well, after that, 2 years later, we get Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. That's the train one, Chris.
Okay, I couldn't possibly care.
Or, as it's known in Japan, the Steam Whistle of Earth.
That's a much better name.
Legend of Zelda, the Steam Whistle of Earth.
I love it. It's better than Spirit Tracks. At least I remember what it was about.
Not that good.
It takes place 100 years after Phantom Hourglass.
Cool.
I'm going to be real with you. This is the only Zelda game I've never beaten. And I cannot be bothered to ever go back to it. Don't care. Terrible game. I've never quit a Zelda game halfway. Except Majora's Mask, but I went back and rectified that. But I don't even care to do that with Spirit Tracks.
So in about 10 years, you'll come back to Spirit Tracks?
Yeah? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think that's a thing that's going to happen.
Anyone have any other words for Spirit Tracks?
Nope.
No, this is just a dark period. I remember everyone being really mad at Zelda in this time. That's about it.
Yeah, it was not a great time to be a Zelda fan. Like, you just were this was just a dark period for Nintendo in general, because the Wii was already starting to fade out, and like everything coming out was shovelware except for like the 2 actual Nintendo games a year.
Mm-hmm. This was part of the carnification of the Wii.
Yeah.
Where everyone and their grandmother who like could figure out how to do something on like a Z-axis was like, let's just make it for the Wii.
Yeah.
Wow, it's real shitty? Great. It's a Wii game.
Pretty much. No lie detected, Chris.
Yeah.
Huh?
No lie detected.
Yeah, you know what's a real fun game? Go on Wikipedia and look at the list of Wii games and see how many of them are like worth playing. The number will surprise you.
I want to do that right now.
Go for it. I don't care.
Oh, all right. Ready?
So what's next?
Next, in 2011, one of the last games on the Wii, and a full 5 years since Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword comes out.
This came with the Motion Plus, as I recall.
Yes. Yes, it was.
Because you needed that plus motion, son.
You needed it. You needed that 1-to-1. It was cool at the time to like twist your arm like that and have Link twist the. But boy, the second that controller desynced and Link just flailed wildly.
You needed to do the circle thing with the eye so it got dizzy.
I remember my biggest problem with this is how long it took to really start. Like at this time, every 3D Zelda had become accompanied by an increasingly long tutorial period. And I think Skyward Sword's clocked into like 6.5 hours for a Zelda game before you could actually do anything and leave the island. It was rough.
Yeah.
Rough, I say. Plus, it's the only Zelda game, if you recall, Josh, that made you repeat the boss fight all the time with that weird nightmare monster thing.
Yeah.
Like they just kept it felt very padded. I think it's people's problem with it. Hopefully a remake streamlines it and fixes it a bit.
I still think it's like there's a lot of flaws in that game, but I still think the art style really, really screams Zelda to me. And that art style, like the Wind Waker to the Skyward Sword to the Breath of the Wild, you see this art style really like resurging and coming back more and more and more.
Oh, you're right. Like Skyward Sword took the realistic proportions of Twilight Princess, but then merged it with like almost a cel-shaded painted look from Wind Waker. And it worked really well. And that's why Skyward Sword, I think, on the Switch is going to be fucking gorgeous. They just need to fix up the game.
Game's going to be great. They just need to fix it. They need
to take care of the overall problem.
Yeah.
All right. In 2013, we got The Link Between Worlds on 3DS. Chris, take it away.
It's wonderful. I think the Link Between, as I said, Link Between Worlds is kind of timeless, and I think that really translates because by putting a newish Zelda in there, it really helped people like me who weren't deep Zelda fans kind of immerse ourselves in the world a little bit. I thought a lot of the mechanics were very interesting. I'm not real thrilled that it was a DS game, but it was good. It was really good. So that's kind of a victory, I think. It's by far the best of the handhelds.
Oh.
Yeah, that's true. There's not much. Well, there's only one game that has to defeat, and that's the
Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
No, Link Between Worlds was really good. Like, I was nervous at first because you're like, oh, you're making a direct sequel to Link to the Past. Like, that's risky, considering it was coming out. At this point, it came out in 2013. So we're looking at almost 21 years later.
Yeah.
Like, that's a long time to wait for a sequel, but they pulled it off so well. And they even found a way to still let you traverse the world by going through the cracks as a painting, which I thought was really cool. Just a cool mechanic.
There's some really cool mechanics in a lot of these games, a lot of these DS games, but some of them work and some of them don't. And I think Link Between Worlds is the one that actually works the best compared to the other ones.
Yep. So
it's weird. It takes two games to figure out how it works.
Of these.
I really didn't like. I'm not useful in video game conversations most of the time. I play PC.
I feel bad that Josh created a topic that you literally can't participate in. Way to go, Josh.
I'm listening to you guys. I'm basically an audience member who gets to be on this.
I'm sorry, Doug.
You're okay. I like
Zelda next week.
But I only have the couple of games, that I played, and then I played like stuff on consoles for like 20 years because somebody stole my PlayStation, and I just stopped buying them. It's like a thing.
Sorry, Doug. You got to pick what next week's negative episode will be about.
Okay, I'll figure out something we can all gripe about.
So after Link Between Worlds, 2 years later, Chris, you say Minish Cap is the most forgettable handheld game?
I would say so.
Counter with, do you even remember the 3DS's Triforce Heroes?
The what?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The what?
Yeah. You want to talk forgettable. Triforce Heroes, they tried to redo Link Four Sword Adventures with the 3DS's Wi-Fi and let you do a 3-player Zelda game where you could dress up in different outfits. Probably the most forgettable. Like, this was another dark period because Triforce Heroes was all we got between Link Between Worlds and Breath of the Wild in 2017. There was a 4-year period where you really didn't get anything new. It was rough. And it's kind of weird to think that it went Triforce Heroes to Breath of the Wild, but it did.
It did. It really did.
After Triforce Heroes, we get Breath of the Wild, which is right up there with Majora's Mask for me, in a game that a lot of people love. I just don't get. Like, I played it and I enjoyed it, but I do not agree with the universal praise it receives.
This is your first step to becoming a cantankerous old man.
Look,
I haven't played it yet. So.
Am I wrong? No, it's the children who are wrong.
Yes, exactly. So much of Breath of the Wild would have been fixed if they did not have that god-awful weapon degradation and breaking mechanic.
Really?
Yes, that's my big problem with Breath of the Wild.
Right.
Because it's not that it's there, it's that it's so egregious. Breath of the Wild, your weapon will break after like 4 hits. It's disgusting. Like, other games have decay of their weapons, but not in a way that in the middle of a fight you could lose your entire arsenal because it's too strong. It takes away any of the ability to have your skill come into play, because it's not about my ability to dodge attacks and counter. Suddenly I'm out of weapons because I'm fighting a rock monster and all 12 of my swords are now gone.
Oh, that's what you get for fighting a rock monster.
No,
here's what I will say. I think weapon degradation is fine. I disagree with the Master Sword being part of the weapon degradation.
The fucking Master Sword will run out of power and then make you wait literally 10 minutes to use it again.
I absolutely disagree with that. But I think otherwise it's fine.
No, I agree. Like, that would have been a whole nother ballgame, Chris, if like all your weapons can break until you eventually get the Master Sword, and then that's the weapon that doesn't. But no, it's like, oh, the Master Sword ran out of power. It needs to recharge. I'm like, that is bullshit.
Yeah, I agree.
Not.
I played a little bit beyond the demo area. I don't know. It's fine, but I found it kind of vacant for my liking. Like,
it very much was. It had a huge world, not much in it.
Yeah, like I spent a lot of time wandering around, kind of lost, and that's probably more my fault than the game's fault. But I don't think it did enough to grab me, and whatever. But I probably will try to play it again in the future. I don't know when.
Julian mentioned in chat that aesthetically the game's amazing. I have no complaints about the art style.
Yes, I agree.
I also enjoy the ability to climb anything, anywhere, and having that be mitigated by like weather and stuff. Like, the mechanics and the systems in place in that game are really cool to play around with. But I think the game really suffered from not having like traditional dungeons at all, or like being able to get new weapons or like items, I guess, because you got the different magic powers, and then once you got the parachute thing, that was it. There was you didn't get new things from the dungeons where you fought the Ganon monsters. And I just felt like it was such a divergence from the Zelda. I mean, I don't want to like knock it for not being traditional, but I felt like you got punished for exploration in Zelda. Like, you would go through all this, fight all these monsters, and your reward was a chest that was like, here's another sword that's going to break in 3 hits. You never got to open a chest and be like, holy shit, that's the thing that's going to open up all these new paths for me. Instead, it's just, well, here's a cooking ingredient. Like, oh, cool. Glad I lost 4 weapons in that fight.
Rad.
I don't know. I have thoughts and feelings about Breath of the Wild. However, I am really excited for the next entry, because if they take Breath of the Wild and then just put a little more traditional Zelda mechanics in place, like some dungeons with permanent item upgrades, and fix the degradation in a way that just makes sense, done. Best game of all time. I don't even care.
Yeah, I think using Breath of the Wild as a jumping off point is going to lead to some really interesting results. I assume in the next 3 years, whenever we get another Zelda.
Actually, I believe we get it announced this year.
You think so?
I think we get our first tease of the new Zelda, and we don't get it till 2021.
Mustard and mayo added together. What?
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 He's looking at Ketcheo or Must Up.
Yes, I am. This is madness.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Take ketchup and mayo and mix them together and put them in a squeeze bottle.
Ugh.
Gross.
All right, so after that, there are a couple spin-off games that we'll just like talk about, and then we'll call it a night.
Okay.
Here are the CDI ones. Faces of Evil, The Wand of Gamelon, and Zelda's Adventure.
I highly recommend watching the Game Grumps Let's Plays because they're very entertaining.
We also have Link's crossbow training for the Wii. Everyone remember that one?
Nope.
You worked at GameStop. You had a back room stocked with used Wii guns.
Oh my god, those things were the Rock Band guitars of their day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just so many.
And then, of course, Hyrule Warriors, the Dynasty Warriors Zelda mashup that did really well.
Really?
Yeah, it looks a lot of fun. I've always been meaning to get it. I've just never gotten around to it. But I think you can make anything a Dynasty Warriors game, and it'll be okay.
The Dynasty Warriors formula works best when it's not a Dynasty Warriors game.
Like the Gundam Dynasty Warriors game.
I was literally about to say that the Gundam Dynasty Warriors game was a lot of fun. There's the Zelda one.
The Berserk one.
What?
The Berserk one.
There's the Fire Emblem one.
Mm-hmm.
There's the what was it? I'm looking it up now.
How can all of the links...
I know One Piece got one.
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
This is madness. That's what that is.
What?
The Hyrule Warriors?
Yeah. Oh, it's absolutely insane. There's the girl Linkle with the twin fucking crossbows. She's a beast.
There's Linkle. That's weird. That's
female Link. Linkle.
Yeah. Linkle.
No, but Link's only a man.
Oh, yeah. Dragon Quest Heroes. They made a Dragon Quest one too.
They did.
What a time to be alive.
Julian's asking, where's Castlevania Warriors, the Castlevania Dynasty Warriors game?
Speaking as a fan of...
That would actually work because there's so many characters from Castlevania now with all the handheld games.
Yeah, there are way too many Castlevania characters.
I want to get Julian on the show because he recently just did a playthrough of every Castlevania game.
I want to point out, I love Castlevania as much as the next guy. I don't think anyone else cares.
Oh,
because
this is our
what was the last game? Lords of Shadow 2?
As much as some of the games have fallen off the that Netflix series.
Fingers crossed for Bloodstained.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Preacher mentioned in chat the Gundam live action movie by Brian K. Vaughan.
You know what I say to this?
It's never happened.
I give this a 10% chance of being a thing that actually happens.
Oh, yeah.
Just for fun, I looked to see how many movies Brian K. Vaughan has been attached to write. There's a lot of them.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me sad.
Because they're like, hey, Brian K. Vaughan's gonna write Ex Machina from 2010. Or Brian K. Vaughan's gonna write, I don't know, anything. It's not gonna happen.
That's fair.
I mean, let me rephrase. A Gundam thing will probably happen. Brian K. Vaughan's Gundam thing,
not so much.
Don't think is going to happen.
All right. Well, let's call it a day. It's almost 10. It's almost 9:30 for you guys. 10:30 for me. And I've literally been driving for 10 hours.
You
Brag
have.
about it. Why don't you?
All right. Good night, bitches.
Doug.
All right.
Everybody.
Doug, let us know what next week's topic's going to be when you think about it. I'm excited.
Okay.
Let the hate flow through you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. You have a great night.
You have a good
All
night.
right. Good night, guys. We will be back next week. I promise.
We shall.
Sweet. Later, guys.
Later. Oops. Stop.